Hey gardeners, Amy here with Garden Up. Today I want to share with you about this really exciting project we just started. So we've been taking care of this property for many years now. The property and the client are one of our favorites. We absolutely love everything about this place. And when this client called me this spring to say she wanted to overseed her lawn with clover, I was so excited, like overjoyed would be the term, I think. I was so excited because this lawn is huge. I mean, look at this. It's like a park. So she told me the story of last year that she was watering what felt like constantly. Every day she'd be dumping water on this lawn and it would still die. It didn't matter how much water she put on it. It was dead by summer. But there were some green patches out there that she saw. So there must be something working. And then she actually got close to it and realized, well, that's the clover. That's the clover growing in the lawn that's staying green. Well, then Sensky would come and spray the clover and the clover would be dead too. And so she just got fed up with it. And she called me and she said, so I canceled my contract with Sensky. Let's plant clover on purpose. Yes! So here we are. This is about 30,000 square feet of lawn that we are overseeding with clover. And I also recommended to her that she adds yarrow to that mix as well. And there's several reasons for that. Clover is wonderful for lawns. It's great when you overseed and mix it with a lawn, but it's not native and it has the potential to spread and become a weed. And given how close she is to the woods, I thought, especially around the edges, we need to only use a native. And yarrow is a native. It does not need any water at all to stay green. As long as you mow it, it doesn't grow tall, and it's one of the softest things to walk on. It's absolutely heavenly to walk on. So I love yarrow lawns, and I know she's going to keep mowing because obviously they live in a nice neighborhood. This is a really well-kept, well-maintained yard, and so their mowing service is going to keep up on the mowing. So we're not worried about yarrow going to flower and having sticks. So here we are. On this big, gorgeous property, we have mowed the lawn as low as we possibly can. It's probably a ½ inch or less. Rake up all the leaves from the lawn. And then we power raked and raked up all of that. There's a lot of raking involved in this project. And honestly, that is most of where the time goes, is raking all of the existing lawn out of the way. But it's a lot less time and a lot less expensive, not to mention a lot less backbreaking, than cutting out the sod that's already here. And she wants to keep the grass, because grass is still really good for walking on. It takes foot traffic better than any other plant. So if you want to have a lawn to play in, it's still a good idea to have some grass in the mix. But the clover and the yarrow will help it stay green all summer. So that's why mixing them together is a really good idea. So where we're at right now is we're raking up the rest of the grass leaves and we are aerating. This soil is really compact. I don't know if it's been aerated before, but it needs to be aerated now. Aerating does several things for overseeding a lawn. One, it opens up the soil. It allows little holes for the new seeds to fall into, ensuring good contact with the soil and better germination. And it also decompacts the soil that's already there. So like I said, this soil is really compact already. So a good, solid run through with an aerator is going to do a lot of good, even if we weren't overseeding it. The other really important thing about overseeding a lawn is watering afterwards. That's where I always go wrong in my yard, is because I don't have a sprinkler system with a timer on it. I have to rely on myself to remember to turn the sprinkler on, and let's just say that's a crapshoot at best. To water a new overseeded lawn, you want to water frequently and shortly, so maybe 5 to 10 minutes, 2 to 3 times a day, until you get good solid germination and the second set of leaves, the first true leaves. Not the cotyledons, but real leaves. That's when you start increasing the duration, but reducing the frequency. So again, 2 to 3 times a day, I'm not going to remember that. So for myself, I'm going to be buying a timer this year with multiple outlets so that I can actually do this and have success with it in my own lawn, because I'm not going to remember. It's just the truth of it. These guys have an irrigation system, though, with a timer. They can do it. So because this is so big, I decided that I think it'd be easiest to divide the yard up into sections so that we could do each section at a time. And we make darn sure that we get the thatching done in that section. And then we go to the next one and do it again. And then we're going to aerate that section. And then we're going to seed that section. And what that's going to do is make it so it feels a little bit less endless. We're going to see our progress. And we were actually able to get a good idea of where we left off between the 2 days because this is a multiple day project. So we flagged the sprinklers, and each section is just between where the sprinklers are. They were a perfect marker to determine where each section should be. So this is working really well, I think. And I highly recommend this method for anybody who's trying to do this on a really big lawn. So a quick little side note about the machines we're using. This is a Thatcher or a power rake. I rent all this equipment, and I rent from River Ridge Hardware, which is on Garland and Driscoll. They have really good machines, and from what I've found in town after years of calling, they have the best prices. So if you're in Spokane, look up River Ridge Hardware. It's a local hardware store that has an excellent rental center. Go there. If you're in another town, you're going to have to do your own research. So a Thatcher is literally just a rake with a motor on it. And basically what's going on underneath here, I'm not going to lift it too much, but maybe you can see under there, is there's these little tine things that spin around. And what they do is they pull up all the lawn and whatever you're trying to rake way more efficiently than you could ever do by hand. And the idea here is that you're removing the thatch, the whole thatch layer from the lawn so that you can uncover the soil. Because there's soil down there, but it's underneath all of that dead grass and roots. And that's what we had to get through. But as far as how to use this machine, make sure to get instructions from your rental center because every single one is going to be different. But the gist of it is make sure the tank is full of gas, turn the switch to on. There might be a choke or a primer on yours, who knows, and then pull the cord. It's just like starting a lawnmower. And then you pull up the bale to make it spin the tines and start moving forward. All right, this next tool that we use is an aerator. And what it does is it pulls up these little plugs out of the lawn. It works the same as the Thatcher. You make sure that on switches to on. Some of them might have a primer plug or something, who knows, and then you pull the cord. This has a few more knobs and things, though. When you pull the bale on this, it actually lifts the whole machine up so that you can move it without having the plugs touching the ground. This is so you can, like, go over a sidewalk or something without damaging the concrete, or if you've already done a section and you just don't want to do it again, whatever. When you drop the bale, it drops the machine. And now the plugs are in the ground, and they're getting ready to pull up these little plugs of soil. So let me lift this up a bit. These go into the ground and pull up the dirt. And that's what it pulls out. There's another adjustment piece here. This adjusts the height. For this project, we want to go down as low as we can. That's as low as it goes. And then this lever here is what engages the drive. When you pull this up, it actually propels you forward. So you don't have to push this machine, thank goodness. It's more of a hold it back for a bit because it will go. And it's actually the plug parts, the metal cores, the thing that does the work. It's that pulls it forward more than the tires. So there is a speed control on here somewhere, but I'm not positive where it is. So I'm just going with whatever it's set at, and we're getting the job done. That is where we're at right now. Next, I'm going to run through with the seeds. I'm going to put just yarrow along the edges out by the fence line so that if anything oversprays and gets into the forest, it's not going to be a problem. Again, yarrow is a native. It belongs here. So planting it in the forest is not going to be an issue. And plus, she'll have really pretty white flowers all around her fence line, which I think will look really nice. And then in the center, where there's no chance of being oversprayed, that's where I'm going to put all the clover and yarrow mixed together. Another challenge I had with this project was finding enough seed to do it. And so I'm actually really excited that I found a bulk wholesale seed company right outside of town, just over in Airway Heights. They don't sell direct to consumers, but they sell to retail establishments that sell to consumers. So they sell a lot of their stuff at Northwest Seed and Pet, but also all over the country. So this is really exciting that their seed plant is actually right down the street. Okay, so here's the seeds. We have a 50-pound bag of clover, a 5-pound bag of yarrow. This seed is so tiny, that to put that through a broadcast spreader, even on the lowest setting, it wouldn't ration properly and it would dump all in the first like 10 or 20 feet. So I don't want to just put that straight in. So in order to dilute it, I bought some playground sand because that shouldn't clog up the sprayer. It should mix really well with the seed and it'll give the seed something to stick to and help it germinate, I hope. Then we're going to go ahead and top dress with some compost or topsoil. But again, the yarrow, I'm going to put straight yarrow all around the edges. So I really don't want to just dump it all in the same spot. Once I get into the center of the lawn, I'm not going to need much playground sand anymore because I'm going to mix the yarrow with the clover seed. And it can go through the cedar probably at around the 2 setting. But this is not pelleted, so it is smaller seed. I might still be mixing it with playground sand. We'll see when I actually open it up how tiny this is. It's a little bit wet, but it should still work. 2 is the smallest setting. So that is still really small, but I think it would still be too big for yarrow. So we're going to put some, this is just straight sand, and I'm just going to experiment with what it takes to get this to come out. It's starting to come out. Would be helpful if it was a little less wet, but hold on. Biggest setting. There he goes. So yes, for the sake of the edge, I'm going to go ahead and mix it with the playground sand, even though it is a little bit on the wet side. I still think I'll get better results doing this than just putting it straight in. I'm also going to leave this bag open so it hopefully dries a little bit by the end of the day. I'm just going to try straight seed on the lowest setting and just see what happens. All right, we'll play. It might be clogged up a little bit from the sand, but that's about the distribution that I want. So this is Century White Clover. It is not Dutch White Clover, it's a hybrid of it. So here's the seed. This is non-pelleted, straight clover seed. Look at that pretty color. Quite a bit bigger than the yarrow though. And I'm going to mix these together so you'll see how they mix. And whenever you do seed, you want to do one direction and then perpendicular. So you want to do it twice over every area so that you ensure that you don't miss an area and it's got full good coverage. And then I need to test the application rate. This is going to need a slightly larger opening, I think. Oh, nope, same size. 3. 3 is your setting. So I'm about 10 feet away from the fence. Again, I don't want clover accidentally spreading into the wildlands out there into the forest where it could escape and become an invasive problem. So, just in the lawn, 10 feet from either fence. Here we go. So I bought this bigger spreader for the rest of the lawn. I just used the hand one for the side, and that was obviously not going to be sufficient. So, but I'm going to use about the same mix. 1 cup clover seed. it could be a heaping cup in this case, it doesn't really matter too much, to about a quarter cup, somewhere between a half and a quarter of yarrow to 2 cups of clover. And I'm going to put quite a bit in here now, and I'm going to mix it as I pour it so that it's well mixed. There you go. The setting is going to be at 2. Or no, I think we settled on 3. But I'm going to test it a little bit. This edge guard setting, what this does is it stops the spray from going on one side. There's a little thing here, and when you turn the edge guard off, it gets out of the way, and when you turn it on, it stops the seeds from being thrown in that direction. And what that does is it keeps a nice clean edge, theoretically. My hand spreader had one of those, but it broke off. That's why I had to turn the spreader away from the fence so that it wouldn't spread over the fence. Okay. Then there's this little hole thing. You pull that. This spreader opens up a lot farther than the other. So the 2 setting opens up a lot for these tiny little seeds. So we're going to try the sand again. And I think what we'll do is we'll just try putting sand through it with no seeds. Let's see if it works, because it's still really wet. Yeah, that's really the problem. It's still really, it's too wet for this. So let's try just doing sand and see what happens. Scoop of sand with a scoop of clover. I'm not going to waste the yarrow. See if the sand will, or the clover will dry out and then enough to spread.
In the end, the sand was too wet to work in the broadcast spreader, but we came up with an alternative. This client happened to have a sandbox with very dry sand in it, so we checked with her, then used the dry sand from her sandbox and replaced it with this new sand that was too wet for us to work with. This did the trick. We were able to spread the seed evenly throughout the entire lawn and saw very good germination in the coming weeks in most areas. There were some areas where the seeds stubbornly would not germinate. After some investigating, we found that the sprinklers were not hitting some of these areas thoroughly, and the grass was only green because it was spring. We were able to adjust the sprinklers and reseed these areas.
So this is where the seed spreader just dumped seeds for a good long strip, and then there's almost nothing next to it, which is ironic.
The seeds grew well for the first couple of months. Then we had an issue with the lawnmowers continuing to mow far too low, despite repeated requests to lift their blade up to at least 3 inches high. This killed a lot of the clover, and it was not nearly as thick as it should have been, but it was much greener than previous years, and the client was still very happy.